So yeah, I'm back again. So picking up where we left off last. Let me recap. So essentially, what I did is I took all my drum bits, which is kick, snare, claps, and all that. As you guys can see, I'm quite a fan of layering sounds up. And then I added a bit of a slight EQ on that, as you can see over here. I then also added what little plugin called Virtual Mix Bus, which essentially just adds a bit of more vibe to it. It's made by Slate Digital. Highly recommend it. I'm not going to get into that. And then I sent all the sounds except for the kick to a bus. So that's bus 2 over there, yeah? So snare, claps, shakers, all of that. So if I go to that channel itself, which is over here, if I play it back, you only hear the clap, snare, hat, and all of that other jazz. And then I sent that back to bus 1, which the kick drum beats up over there. I have a reason for it, which I'll get to now in a bit. Anyways, so I want to proceed to kind of like fatten up and thicken up the sound and just make the drums a little bit more punchy, I guess. I've got a couple of plugins I prefer using, but for if I can, I'll try and use the plain old Logic ones for what I need to do. Okay, so right here, I like adding a little plugin called the Paz Analyzer, which I purchased from Waves. It's pretty decent. Okay. So first things first, I am going to do what they call parallel compression. So I'm gonna go in here and just find the Logic compressor over here. Hit it over there. I'm gonna choose a Studio VCA, I think, and essentially I'm going to compress the living bejeebers out of it. So I generally do this like initially with like a very high ratio, like 30:1, and a lot of makeups. I can actually hear what's happening. Release is 0, attack is 0, auto gains off. Let's turn this little thing soft clipping under there, and the mix over here, very important, is on full. So it's like 100% mix of what's happening in the compressor. Show. Anyways, playing it back, as you can hear, that's what it sounds like. Now I'm gonna use the threshold over here. Well, not actually, I'm gonna use the attack over here and move the attack to kind of come in a little bit later, so it doesn't actually smash the beginning of the transient in the actual sound. I'm actually gonna let it come through a little bit and then kind of like whack it at the peak. Pretty fast release as well. I'm not sure if you guys can hear that. So I'm gonna move the ratio back to something a little bit more human. Say make it 10. That shouldn't be okay. Watch the metering over here. Seems to be okay. Seems a little bit quiet over there. Give me a sec. Sounds a little bit more punchy, I think. So this way it gets interesting. I'll use the mix over here and mix some of that overcompressed signal into the actual raw sound. Just for a little bit of grit. Sounds okay. Now that's going to go back into this drum, this bus of it, which is bus 1. And that includes the kick drum. So if I switch it on, that's what you're kind of going to hear. I just got to find a nice little balance between the kick drum and whatever, but I'll get to that in a second. Let me get back here. I'm gonna do a parallel compression on the kick drum separately, and the reason why is because I don't want the kick drum to be smashed with the rest of the drums, which I can do a bit later. I just want a little bit more control, so I'm gonna be a little bit more. I'm gonna kind of separate the process out a little bit. So we'll go over here. Go to compressor. That seems to be okay. Studio VCA once again. You should try all of these little algorithms I got here in Logic. I got Studio FET, Classic VCA, Vintage VCA, Vintage FET, Vintage Opto. Lots of videos on YouTube about what they actually do and why they are different. I'm not going to get into that. This is strictly about how I get my drum sound for now. So I'm going to move the basic attack back. So just the kick gets hit on the peak, same as I did with the hi-hats and the drums when I'm parallel compression, except over here I've got a little bit more control over the kick drum. So I move the threshold till I hear the click gets louder. That's pretty decent. So I want the kick to kind of pump a little bit. Move that back down to 10. See what happens there? More of the click comes out. Makes the kick a little bit more sound a little bit more clear, I guess. So when I mix it with the rest of the sounds, it should be a bit better. Let's turn down this kick a little bit. Just a little something that, I don't need to discuss very often, but I will in this kind of like tutorial slash showcase, I guess, as I don't like to actually use too much EQ and too much compression, because it can absolutely destroy a mix. You know what I mean? So just let the sounds do their thing, and when you got a problem, you fix it. But don't run to sort of compressors and all that other jazz as a default measure. You know what I mean? So now I've got everything summed together on this bus over here. Kind of like where that's going. I'm going to pull out the EQ and just kind of let me have a look at this. It's pretty decent. I'm just gonna kind of clean up, scoop out some frequencies over here that I don't like maybe in the mix. So what I do is I'll turn that up, give it a narrow Q, and just sweep. Find a bit of resonance over there. I'll just turn that down a little bit. Widen the Q a little bit, not too much. There seems to be a bit of something happening in the high end over here. I don't like that over there. So just kind of A-B the difference. Turns up a little bit. Switch off the EQ. That's the EQ off. EQ on. Sounds a little bit more clearer, right? Again, I tend to try to cut first before I boost. Makes life a little bit easier in the long run. There's a little trick I'm gonna kind of employ. I don't need it in this case, but yeah, let's go for it. I kind of want a very specific frequency to be highlighted in the kick drum range. Again, same story. That seems to be the fundamental over there. Turn it down a little bit. Widen up the cue a little bit, so it's a little bit smoother. Maybe bring up the claps a little bit more. Mix it up a little bit lower, yeah. So I'm just gonna group these guys up together. Okay, this seems to have reverted back to a previous state. I don't know why, but anyways, we'll fix that up. Okay, turn it up a little bit. Cut some of that top end off. That sounds pretty decent. Moving on to that bus again, which kind of had all this, the sum of all that signal together. Let me actually just make a little channel here on my mixing disc so I can see where it is. So I've EQ'd it a little bit. I'm gonna add a bit of compression to it, just to kind of like make the whole mix pump a little bit. Not too much, just a tad. But let's go for bum, 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 bum. Classically say, why not? Okay. Okay, maybe not that one. Let's try vintage, we say. Kind of looks like 1176 to my eyes here, actually. And just turn the ratio all the way down to like sort of maybe 2 or something. So it just kind of tickles the mix up a little bit. So I'm watching the meter over here. Not too much. Sounds pretty decent to me. I'm gonna throw another EQ after this. Just to kind of bring up the frequencies that I want to hear. Compressors have a funny habit of hitting the loudest frequency in the mix. So a lot of times you need to maybe just boost them a little bit, just a tiny bit, maybe like 1 dB or so, just to kind of bring them back out again. Not too much. That sounds pretty decent. Then I'm gonna add another limiter to this actually. Just kind of bring up the gain for the whole sound, smash it a little bit, get it like sounding really super tight. I'm gonna pull out the precision limiter here. kind of get this limiter to do its work a little bit. Sounds decent. Turn the main fader down a little bit. Let's have a look at this. Looks fairly decent-ish. And that's kind of like how I kind of get my drum sound. I mean, a little thing I like doing is just also placing the actual drums in a room. There's another plugin by a company called 2C Ether. It's quite expensive, $299, but worth every single cent. Sounds really great. I'm gonna go to one of these presets over here. I like that. Turn the gain down to 0. Yeah. So that's dry. And that kind of just places the drums in a room a little bit, you know. Helps separate the sound up. So I'm going to switch all these plugins off for you. That's what it sounded like before. Nice and thick. Thanks for joining me. Next time we'll be adding out the bass line and working our way up